Yes.
Okay.
Sorry. I'll tell you when it's on.
Okay.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Bird's Eye View. Today is going to be a very special episode because we have a very nice guest here, Bill Phelan or Bob Phelan of the On the Verge podcast. Bob, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate your time. And let's talk some baseball.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Always happy to talk baseball, especially when it comes to the Orioles. So
hmm
let's do it.
I think first let's talk about Major League Baseball. Um, and I think the first thing to talk about is the pitch clock. Obviously, this is a new rule implemented. And so, just what do you think? How do you think it's going to affect the game? And what do you think it's going to do for the game?
I'm personally a big fan. I was down there at spring training for the first few games of spring training, and it definitely speeds up the pace of the game. But you still have the same number of outs that you have to get. So you know, it doesn't really change the game, but it probably is going to cut off like 25, 30 minutes on the average time. I think they instituted it in the minor leagues last year, and that's pretty much what the result was. So I know some people are scared of the change just because it's baseball. Don't change it, but I think it's a good change. I think it's you're not really going to notice the difference other than games will end sooner than you might expect, and maybe you can get some more interest in some more casual viewers as well.
I also thought it was interesting in spring training. The first victim was former Oriole Manny Machado with the first automatic strike for the Padres. So I just thought that was funny. And the other
Yeah.
rule that we saw implemented as well, the bigger bases. So what do you think the bigger base is going to do for baseball, and specifically the Orioles, who have Jorge Mateo and Cedric Mullins, two of the fastest players in the American League, who were right at the top of the stolen base leaderboard last year. What do you think that's going to do for those guys?
Yeah, what is it? 3 inches bigger per base.
I believe
I
so.
don't know if that's going to necessarily have that much of a difference. I know it's supposed to be for safety reasons to, give more space for people sliding and diving into the base. But when you combine that with the pitch clock and pitchers don't have as much time to mess around with the runner on first or second base. Plus, they can only throw over 2 times before it's considered a balk now. So all those combined, yeah, I think you're going to see probably an increase of I don't know, 20% stolen bases. I think someone said if you could, I don't know, you're not going to double the amount of stolen bases, but I think, it definitely gives the runners a bigger advantage now. So Jorge Mateo, Cedric Mullins, they should be running a lot.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be very exciting. You have Cedric Mullins leading off, or Mateo at the bottom of the order. The Orioles going a little bit old school there with the speed at the top and bottom of the lineup. And another thing here, I think a big guy this spring for the Orioles, Heston Kjerstad. He's been tearing the cover off the ball, especially coming back from myocarditis, I believe it is, which is a heart disease. How what are your thoughts on Heston Kjerstad spring, and what do you think he can do for the Orioles organization in 2023?
Yeah, he's opening up some eyes. It's hard to say exactly, what level of competition he's been doing this damage against. I think Baseball Reference has that stat, but he's hitting the ball hard. It's like a 30, 35 plate appearance sample, and he's doing what he can with it. I still think he'll go down to AA and hopefully work his way up from there. But he's got serious power. He can play right field pretty well. He's a top 10, top 12 prospect in the system, which is the best in the game. The Orioles could definitely use a power hitting outfielder this time in September or next year. Yeah, I think he's a really solid prospect. He's just got to go prove that he can sustain the success over the course of a full season in AA and AAA this year.
So I know you kind of said end of September there for Heston Kjerstad. What do you think the timeline is for Heston Kjerstad and getting to the bigs?
Yeah, I think he could get his major league debut at the end of this season if he continues to hit like he has. He could be in AA for April and May, sometime in June, get up to AAA, and then, if he's still hitting well in the end of August, early September, when rosters expand by 2 players, then and the Orioles are in contention, he could easily come up and help the team there. So yeah, I think best case he's up end of this year, but really we're looking at early 2024 for him to really make his presence known at the major league level.
Yeah, fair. Because he obviously tore it up at high A, but hit more of a snag at regular A ball. So, or I think he flipped those two. But either way, I'm wishing the best for Heston Kjerstad moving forward. So now with the major league club, and the Orioles have a lot of starting pitchers that they can use. What does your opening day rotation look like for the Baltimore Orioles?
I have it. Well, I think they announced that Kyle Gibson's number 1, Dean Kramer number 2. I think I would have it Cole Irvin 3, Kyle Bradish 4, Grayson Rodriguez 5. I think despite his little bit of struggles here and there in the spring, I still think he's probably the most talented arm of them all. And if he starts the year at the major league level and wins Rookie of the Year, the Orioles get an extra draft pick. So I don't think they're going to turn that opportunity down between him and Gunnar Henderson having that chance to pull that off. So I think they'll let Grayson figure it out at the major league level in the beginning of the season, and it'll be exciting for fans because he throws 98, 99 miles per hour with some great secondary pitches. And yeah, it should be fun to watch. And then you got DL Hall, Tyler Wells, John Means coming back from injury around June, July. So there's definitely options in case of injury or if someone's just not performing well enough. So I think the rotation is on par, if not a little bit better than last year, but the depth is what will allow it to sustain itself, I think.
So you mentioned Kyle Gibson getting the opening day start. How do you feel about that? Giving the ball to the vet against Boston on opening day.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. He's not the most exciting pitcher on the Orioles roster at 36, 37 years old. And, but he's been a former All-Star. He had a good spring until last night's start. But it doesn't necessarily matter. I mean, it's on the road. He's pitched well in Boston. I know they're probably saving Bradish for the Texas series because he hasn't pitched well in Boston, even though it's only been a couple starts. I think ultimately they're all going to get their chance through the rotation, so why not give it to the veteran for now? Although it would have been cool for Dean Kramer to get the honor since he had such a good year last year.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So y'all got a ton of depth, especially in the infield. How do you see the infield shaking out, starters and even guys coming off the bench?
Yeah, not used to having this much depth as an Orioles fan, an old man as myself. You got Ryan Mountcastle at first. I'd say since they paid him $8 million to sign him, Adam Frazier at second on opening day, Jorge Mateo at short, Gunnar Henderson at third, and then you have Taron Vavra and Ramon Urias on the bench or at DH if necessary. They both can hit really well. And, well, Urias was a Gold Glove finalist at third base, and he can play second base as well. And then you have Jordan Westberg, Joey Ortiz, Connor Norby in AAA just waiting for their chance to come up. So, it's going to put some pressure on guys like Mateo, who he needs to prove what he can field, sure, but he needs to prove that he can hit well enough to fend off these young guys coming up. I saw that he played some center field yesterday, so maybe they're just trying to figure out a way to keep his speed and his glove in the game and also giving other guys a chance.
Yeah.
So obviously right now there's a lot of controversy with the Angelos family with the whole lawsuit, and it's kind of a mess, and unfortunately the Orioles are caught in the middle of it on the tight budget. Where do you stand with that, and what is your opinion on the Angelos family situation?
Well, hopefully they can sell the team or at least increase the budget this coming offseason. I don't know. I do like that they hired Mike Elias and just let him do his thing. I think that's great. That's something that the older Angelos, Peter Angelos, never really did. He wanted to be more hands-on. But, I mean, it'd be nice if we could extend some guys, sign some free agents, and really go for it in this next offseason. And if they're not going to open up the checkbooks, then I'd like to see someone come in that can.
Yeah. And kind of similar to the money and the budget thing, I think that Peter Angelos or John Angelos, he put out a statement kind of saying that the Orioles might be looking to operate like a team like the Rays or the Guardians or on that tight budget and still be successful. What was your opinion on that, and how did you react to that when he said that?
Yeah, I think it's the Brewers, the Guardians, the Rays. they're successful teams. Of course, you want to emulate what they're doing, but you'd like to be able to do it with a little more budget to even take it further than that. Be like the Astros, who are kind of similar in their operations, but they have a bigger payroll. That would be the ideal. So I think it's a good start to emulate those guys, but you can do better. You can do better.
Yeah. So obviously with the wall being moved back last year for
Yeah.
the Orioles in left field, I think a guy in particular that took a hit, Ryan Mountcastle. I know that Trey Mancini got hit too a little bit by that. Wasn't able to hit as many home runs, but he's gone with the Cubs now after being traded to the Astros. So, how do you think Mountcastle is going to adjust, and how do you think Baltimore is going to affect Ryan Mountcastle at the moment?
I think he's poised for a big time breakout in 2023. He hit the ball hard. I just had Orioles status one from Twitter, Ben Dorst, on our new Major League Mailbag podcast yesterday. I haven't released it yet, but he went into this really well. He went from hitting the ball hard. His hard hit percentage went from like the high 30s to 46% last year. He increased his exit velocity by 2 miles per hour on average. Like he really, everything about his stat line showed that he should have been better than he was in 2021. And he just hit into some bad luck between hitting it right at guys. And then, of course, Baltimore stealing a couple extra bases from him. So he's looked good in spring. I think he's just a guy that can just flat out hit. I think last year will end up being like a down year for him. I think he's going to hit the ball to all fields a little bit more and just, I think he'll be fine. Yeah, I think he'll hit 30 plus home runs and be a really good first baseman for us this year.
And then personally, I just want to touch on the first base situation, the backup first base situation, I should say, for the Orioles. Obviously, you had a lot of non-roster invitees in camp. Franchi Cordero, Lewin Diaz, Ryan O'Hearn, Curtis Terry, Josh Lester. The Orioles were able to stockpile, the backup first base options in camp. Do you think any of them will break the opening day roster as Ryan Mountcastle's backup for 2023?
No, I don't. I think that was kind of a fake competition. These reporters, they need something to write about all spring long, all March long. I think it's a competition between them, but it's more for like who's going to be sitting at AAA waiting for their opportunity because of an injury or something like that. So, yeah, I think there's guys that perform well. O'Hearn, Diaz is already sent down. Franchi Cordero's hit well. Lester's hit well, but I think Cordero might have an opt out, so he might get traded or just end up signing with another team if there's a team out there that wants to give him a major league role. But I think between Lester, O'Hearn, and Diaz, they'll all be sitting in AAA and continuing that competition until necessary. And I don't even know if any of them will be in the majors at all at any point this year, but we'll see.
So obviously we talked about, the non-roster invitees for first base. Who do you think is kind of the in-house talent for the backup first base role? Because, the Orioles, there isn't really a guy ranked in the top 30 across a lot of lists and a lot of publications who plays first base. And I was just really curious on who could come up from the Orioles system, not one of these guys who I've just mentioned because they're not homegrown stars, and make that impact as Ryan Mountcastle's backup.
Yeah, there's really no first base prospects in the system. I think the best is probably T.T. Bowens, who played all last year at High A Aberdeen and performed admirably, but he's not really a big-time prospect by any means. But I think we're going to see a little bit of Anthony Santander, Terran Vavra, guys like that can back up occasionally at the major league level. Also, it's not hard to teach a guy how to play first base. So let's just say, Heston Kjerstad continues to rake. Colton Cowser's proven he's pretty much ready. Hudson Haskin performing well at AAA. You could easily teach Stowers or Kjerstad or someone like that, even Santander, how to play first base and get them more in the lineup regularly. I think it must be nothing is happening by accident with the Mike Elias front office in the Orioles system. So they must be just like a thing that they believe in, that you don't really need a first base prospect. You can fill that hole either externally pretty cheap or teach someone to do it. And I kind of agree with that.
I really
Could you even see Taron Vavra playing some first base?
I think in a pinch, I saw he's been playing. He's played center field. He's played left field. He grew up as a shortstop in the minor leagues. He's obviously can play second base, third base. So yeah, I think he could play first base in a pinch if needed to, like 5-6 times,
Yeah.
5 to 10 times a year.
Yeah, I could really see Kobe Mayo though playing first base eventually, because we see guys like Ryan Mountcastle who couldn't play defense. Like I saw him playing shortstop, couldn't play defense, moving over to first base and playing well defensively. And I can see Kobe Mayo doing that because he's a pretty big guy, and I think, like you said, first base is not a hard position to learn.
Yeah, Kobe Mayo definitely an option, but he's got such a good arm over at third base. I think he'd be even better in like a corner outfield spot, gunning people
Yeah.
down. But again, he's a big body. He can hit the ball hard and far, so he definitely would have the offensive profile to be a first baseman. And you have so many talented guys. You're gonna have to find a way to get them all in a lineup. So definitely another
Yeah.
possibility there.
Especially outfield. So where do you see like upcoming players this season? Like, who do you think is going to be most impactful with call ups this season?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I am a big fan of Joey Ortiz. He had a concussion during spring training, and he's been out since. So between his defense, and he's proved that he can hit the ball pretty hard as well. I think he could come up and take over Jorge Mateo's job at some point this year. But I think the big one, Westberg, he's been performing well. He could easily come up and take Urias's spot as well. But Colton Cowser, he walked like more than double of any other uh, player in spring training for the Orioles this spring, and he didn't even play full time. He hit a home run 476 feet. He can play pretty good defense at all three outfield spots. I think once he just gets more experience facing lefties and breaking balls, he's a guy that's going to walk, hit for some power, play good defense. I think he could be the big time reinforcement that comes up sometime in the middle of the season for us.
Yeah,
Um,
I really like Colton Cowser though. Obviously not like has small sample spring training mainly. He's played 21 games, but I really think that's not like you shouldn't like judge a player by his spring training stats, and that I really think he's gonna be a good player for them in the future. And like looking at his AAA stats, like how he was able to move up so quickly to AAA. Sorry, not AAA, and then but obviously had to get sent back down. I really think he's gonna be a good player for them.
Yeah, I agree. He's really good.
yeah, obviously last year, first overall pick was Jackson Holiday. Obviously won't be in the majors for a couple of years, but what do you think his ceiling is once he gets there?
He's the real deal. 19 years old.
Mhm.
I mean, talk about patient approach and walk rates. Like this kid, all he's got to do is learn to lift the ball. He's got to stop hitting the ball on the ground. But he's 19 years old. He's got plenty of time to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the fact that he got invited to Major League Spring Training as a high school draftee last year, and he stayed as long as he did, it speaks volumes. He'll probably go back down to Single A Delmarva to just get a confidence boost, improve on his numbers there, and he'll quickly be in Aberdeen, and he could finish the year in Double A at 19 years old. That's pretty insane, and I think by the end of 2024, if his path goes the way it is, he could be like Gunnar Henderson in the majors in September at 20 years old, and looking to either be the starting shortstop or second baseman after that.
Yeah, no, when I saw he was invited to spring training, I was really impressed because I was like, oh, already considering he was just drafted last year.
Yeah, Hudson Haskin can't even get an invite, and he's been a college draftee for a couple years now. So yeah, it was
Yeah.
very impressive.
Yeah, definitely. And also I got a Jackson Holiday auto recently, so super pumped about that. Hopefully that can skyrocket in value in the next couple years. But I want to ask about a guy, DL Hall. I saw DL Hall's first start in Tampa. What I took away is that he needs to get ahead in counts, or else he's going to kind of lose the batter. The command can be a little all over the place, and we saw that in the first big league start. For you, what do you think DL Hall's floor and ceiling is as a big league player?
Yeah, he's an exciting player. I mean, his stuff is ridiculous. It's probably better than Grayson Rodriguez's stuff. It's just, can he command it? And I think his stuff is so good that his floor is still like a back end reliever, setup man, closer type. Josh Hader comes to mind. But I think his ceiling is like a Blake Snell that can go more than 5 innings. I mean, his stuff is insane. His fastball, he's still building up from his back injury, so he was in the lower 90s in his first start. But I mean, I've seen him in Double A where he can just sit mid to high 90s. He's got a ridiculous changeup that he's developed. His slider and curveball are both plus as well. Like, it's just command, command, command. If he can command and keep his pitch count low, the ceiling is of a true ace in this league. And between him and Grayson, hopefully at least one of them will reach that potential.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully his new number will be lucky for him.
Yeah. All right. Anything else?
No,
I'm excited for the season to start this week. Majors and minors. We cover the minor leagues pretty well, I'd say, between Twitter on @BSL on the Verge and if you search your podcast platforms, BSL on the Verge as well. I think we got the minors covered, and we're starting to do some extra major league coverage as these guys that we've been following for the past few years come up and help the major league team. So we're fans and we cover the team, and give us a shout, give us a listen, and tell us what you think.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Bob, thanks so much for coming out. We really appreciate your time on the podcast. Go follow him on the platforms he just mentioned. On the Verge, they do some really great stuff over there with the minor leagues, and I'm sure it's an exciting time to cover that because Orioles have the best farm system in baseball. So I'm sure that's a lot of fun covering a lot of top end talent. So, but this was a really fun episode. I like discussing Major League Baseball and the Orioles. And once again, Bob, thanks so much for coming out. We appreciate it.
Thanks for
thank you
having
very
me.
much.
Thank you.
All right. So that's going to be it for this episode, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Follow the Bird's Eye View on YouTube as well as on The Verge, wherever you listen to podcasts. This is a very, very good episode. Just liked having that discussion. So thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.